victory did make history. And on that night, there was someone by his side who made history as well. Kellyanne Conway, his campaign manager, the first woman to run a successful presidential campaign. There you go, James. Let it out. Say it loud, say it proud. She joins me now live. Congratulations.
Thank you, Megyn.
On his victory and on yours.
Well, I appreciate that. I just think he's a very unique, compelling messenger who took his message directly to the people. We were totally impervious to the naysayers, the critics, the polls, the pundits, many in the media, frankly. And I'm just glad that I think this is the people's election. I really do. And I feel like my Republican Party was veering dangerously close to becoming the party of the elites for a number of years. And I'm just glad it's the party of the forgotten man, forgotten woman.
Well, there's no question that Donald Trump earned this victory, but you also helped. And he had been through two other campaign managers who were not able to get him quite in the space that would prove to be successful. And then Kellyanne came in and managed to help a successful candidate be his best self. And so I know you're sweet. She's giving all the credit to other people because that's how she is. But let's talk about what your reaction was the other night, because we were sitting on the set and you go into those exit poll meetings at 5 o'clock and they're like, it looks good for Hillary, doesn't look good for Donald, probably be able to call it in the 11 o'clock hour. It looks like it's going to be a Hillary win. And these are just data crunchers. These aren't partisans. It's just reading what the polls, the exit polls have said. When was the moment you knew, oh my God, like he actually is winning? He's winning this.
So our goal was always to protect the core four, as I call it: Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, Iowa. Not an easy feat. We knew Iowa and Ohio looked good going into election night. And we knew we were behind in the early vote in Florida and North Carolina, but we weren't as far behind as Governor Romney was in 2012 because we were ready for that. And in concert with the RNC, we built a field operation, a ground game, a data operation that tried to mitigate the loss of early voting that just Republicans tend to experience. We needed a big day of vote in those states. And when we saw that catch up, we knew that we were going to be close, but probably prevailing in both states. The other thing, Megyn, is that in later weeks, we saw about 6 different paths to 270. But most of those paths ran through the upper Midwest. And we figured, you know, when I saw Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania competitive, and I saw Hillary Clinton not getting over 50%, the thing about her in all of these swing states, she never got
a low ceiling.
I've been saying that all along.
Well, when did you realize Michigan was in play, that Pennsylvania was really in play? Was it Comey? What was it?
Well, our internal polls, and I know in public polls,
at one point,
probably 3 weeks before the election. I mean, these are states that were always attracted to the Donald Trump message of renegotiating bad trade deals, getting your jobs back from Mexico and China, creating 25 million new jobs, energy and infrastructure investments, and patriotism, frankly. Those jobs were always resting. But he was getting crowds wherever he went, and people were saying, oh, who cares? I called them the wrist flickers. Oh, crowd size, it doesn't matter. It does matter because
they didn't matter for Romney. They didn't matter. That's why. I mean, honestly, if you look at the last election, Mitt Romney's crowd size were huge, not consistently in the way Trump's were, but, you know, and he didn't win. So that you go by history. But in the end, Trump, I mean, not only did he have the huge crowds, but they were motivated and they were mobilized.
They were.
They made the difference. Let me ask you about on a go-forward basis now. Everybody's wondering about the cabinet. Who's he going to use as his top advisors? You confirmed publicly that you've been offered a job in the Trump White House. Want to give us any hint or forecast what that might be?
No, and it's not a specific job. I was just pushing back on a ridiculous media report that I was reluctant to go inside the administration
because I wanted to run.
Well, I wanted to run my own. I want to run my own business, and people just shouldn't say that without checking with the source.
So Dave Sherman reported that without even asking you whether it was true.
Correct, and I just said false. Maybe the people who are the sources would like my job in the White House, but no, that's something. It's a conversation I will have with Mr. Trump when it's appropriate, and I've already told him that I'm willing to serve.
What do you think it's going to look like? I mean, because the names that come to mind: Rudy Giuliani, Chris Christie, Newt Gingrich, Ben Carson, Steve Bannon, all those in the running, as far as you know.
Well, I know they've been incredibly loyal and they're incredibly capable and qualified to take these types of positions. I don't like to speculate on personnel. I think those are personal decisions.
We'll get to that soon.
But the folks that that's right. And this is Donald Trump's presidency, and it's his cabinet, and it's his senior team to name. I just think the major criteria will be loyalty to him.
Yeah, he needs to have people he feels comfortable with.
Yes, but then also capable and qualified to do the job. But everybody you just named certainly is.
Now let's talk about what we saw there with Emily, the protester. She's fearful, right? And for her, the issue is climate change. And we've heard so many other issues with other people who are out there. Women, Hispanics, people who are afraid they might get deported, right? Some Muslims, people who found themselves on the other side of Donald Trump's pledged policies or his, behavior at some points during the campaign. Does he do anything to reach out to them other than, just try to act presidential? Like, do you think he's going to do something where he has a specific message for them?
He's off to a great start in that regard, Megyn. The minute he won the election and went out to do his victory speech, a speech he wrote, he went out there and he said, I'm going to be the president of all Americans, including those who do not support me. I think that's incredibly important. It's very important to him personally, I assure you. Secondly, less than 36 hours after being elected president of the United States, Donald Trump and Melania Trump flew down to Washington to meet with President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. And I talked to
it must be said, were brutal to Donald Trump, just as he was to them, but they were brutal right back.
But they all love America and democracy, and I know all four of them share an interest in a peaceful transition into the next administration.
We're going to get to that with Charles Krauthammer, but
I will tell you something also, that this afternoon, President Bill Clinton called President-elect Donald Trump, and they had a very warm conversation.
Oh, God, I'd love to hear that.
President Clinton congratulated Mr. Trump on his victory and wished him well. And so you're hearing that again and again. And I think that's my message to the protesters, too, which is take your cues from these 5 or 6 people today. The sitting president, the former president,
keep an open mind.
First lady, keep an open mind, and certainly the Trumps who
the campaigns
they had a
are always
wonderful,
rough and
fantastic
tumble.
day there.
They're rough and tumble. But during the campaigns, you never liked the personal attacks. You never liked it. Ivanka made clear she didn't like the personal attacks. You know, nobody is a perfect person, and everybody's got flaws. Do you think that as president, that President-elect Trump and President Trump will be able to refrain from that, from going tit for tat with anybody who attacks him and sort of going, you know, to the darkest place on Twitter or otherwise? Now
you see his focus. He has his 100-day plan out there, and that's going to be his focus. And he also has a Republican House and Senate, which means he can actually get things done. Yeah. I think folks on both sides of the aisle like to hide behind divided government, Megyn. It's a great foil to fear, frankly, and a lack of will.
I wasn't brave enough to get things done.
Well, that's right. It's like, oh, I would have, except the presence of a different party, or I would have, except the Congress is in my way. Well, then, you know, here you have a complete control by the Republican Party, and the country decided that. They also decided to put Republicans in charge of 69 of our 99 state legislative chambers.
No, he had coattails in many ways, and then the Republicans had a great attitude.
So they'll be working on that. But on this point about reaching out and talking to people and all,
or just personal attacks.
You know, can we agree? I hope we can agree that no one has ever been subjected to the deluge and just unbelievable avalanche of personal attacks as Donald Trump. I can just tell you, as one of his senior staffers.
It's only going to get worse now that he's
president. Goodness, but it's nothing like we're the walking wounded. I mean, there's nothing like it, and it's just like the Edward Scissorhands of insults. And frankly, I think if Secretary Clinton had not run such a nasty negative campaign toward the end, she could have made the race more competitive. People don't like that. They don't like the paid advertisements of insults.
That Trump gave as good as he got, and he gave.
But he had a very aspirational, uplifting message in there too. He did in his last couple weeks, especially.
But my point is, as President of the United States, you know, he can't be engaging in attacks on civilians, verbal attacks or shots like that, and that doesn't lift us up. And do you think he's going to stop that?
I know that he's fully capable of being the president of all Americans, and he's promised to do that, and that would be included in there. But I would say to those protesters who are burning his image in effigy, or who have all these nasty signs, "Not my president." Can you imagine if Hillary Clinton had been elected, which I suppose they were all expecting? And the Trump protesters were saying, "Not my president," or saying that about President Obama. It's all you would hear about. So
that's right.
I think people should really take some self-reflection and realize we've got a lot in common in this country. But having said that, he's going to be a tough leader. He got elected on a certain issue set, and you can expect him to tackle that very quickly in his administration.
We are looking forward to watching the next 70 days and see what your team puts in place, Kellyanne.
Thank you,
and to
Megyn.
watching you too.
Thank you.
Congrats.